Okay, so we are discussing on yesterday's topic, right? Kubernetes namespaces. Has anyone gone through it? Any uh, any definition that you wanted to give to me? So these are very important in everyday interviews. People are expecting this answer from you guys. Kubernetes namespace is nothing but, let's say you have a cluster. Okay, so this is your cluster. So inside this cluster, you are having two nodes or a three nodes or a four nodes. Let's say like this. Okay. So inside this, you are deploying the pods. Inside the cluster, you are deploying pods. This is your control plane. And this is a node 01, node 01, and this is node 02, and this is node 03. Okay. So inside this, you are deploying a pod. Okay. So this pod is basically a front-end pod. Let's say this is a front-end pod. You have two pods. And similar way, you have other two pods, which is uh, backend pods. Okay, you have backend pods. So this is backend BC. Let me call this is front end FC. Okay. And here we know that there is a scheduler, right? There is a scheduler. What this scheduler will do? This scheduler, I don't know. It is going to schedule on this node or this node or this node. I don't know. What it will do, if you follow any node affinities, if you follow any pod affinities, those are going to guarantee you that yes, I'll be deploying this pod here or here or here or here. Or we already discussed that anti-affinity and pod affinity. If a pod affinity, if these two are deployed here, then these two are also going to be deployed here. If an anti-affinity, this one here and this one here, this one here and this one here, right? For each node, this is going to deploy in the each pod into the each node. But now, when you say that namespaces, what do you wanna do? You wanted to separate, isolate them into your cluster. Let's say you deployed this pod here or you deployed this pod here, but these two pods are deployed in the two different nodes, let's say two different nodes, like this, but you wanted to consider them under one network. You wanted to consider them under one network. Let's say you are creating a logical namespaces. You are creating a logical namespaces. Sorry. You're creating a logical namespaces. So this is a logical namespace. This is a logical namespace. What this logical namespace, even though your pods deploying in a different node, but you are under one logical layer. Okay, I can say one logical layer. So front end into this one and back end into this one. So these two namespaces will not be communicated. These two will not communicate. So that is how you can isolate them by using namespaces inside the cluster. So for this, you will give a name. For this, you will give another name. For this, you will give one name, and for this, you will give another name. Let's say I'm gonna call this as uh, dev team. So inside this dev team, all the pods are going to deploy. Let's say I'm gonna call this as infra team or backend team or app team. So inside this, all the pods will be deployed here. And these pods of dev team and app team will not be communicated inside the cluster. So that is the use case of this namespaces. That is use case of this namespaces inside the cluster. Are you all clear with it, or do you have any question with this? Clear?
Yes, Raj.
Everyone? Nagesh, Nagaveni, Sai Krishna, Srikanth, Vikram.
Rajani, like, why are we doing this? Because of the billing purpose, just to
No,
to
no, no.
differentiate. Uh,
Not the building purpose. You are just isolating and doing a partitions between the resources. Between the resources. Let's say, so if in a cluster, you're deploying all the pods, number of pods you are deploying with a deployment set. How do you identify these are all the pods, or uh, these are all the pods, this one, like for the development team, or these are the development pods, or these are front end pods, or these are back end pods, or these are APIs, or these are orders pods, or these are payment pods. So you wanted some identification, right? So how do you identify them? You're deploying, let's say 100 pods in a one cluster. When you're deploying 100 pods, how you will, let me, you're deploying 100 pods. Among the 100 pods, how you will say that these 20 pods are front end, these 3 pods are back end, these 4 pods are API. How you will segregate and define them? So there is no option. To do that, you can create a namespace. In real time, what happens? In real time, you will be having different namespaces. For API, you have a API namespace. Under that, all the APIs will be deployed. And for front end, you'll be having a front end namespace. In that, all the pods will be deployed. And for a different use cases, like you have a orders, then for orders, namespace will be created under 3 pods will be replica. 3 pods will be created. And payments, so under the payments, replica is 3. So 3 pods will be created, and you can use HPA under this namespace only. So like this, you are segregating them. You are segregating them to identify. This is a logical partition inside your cluster. So that is the main use case. First thing. And second thing is, you wanted to understand at the different environments. You have a multiple teams: development, testing, application team, infra team, like that. So if you wanted to differentiate all the pods among the multiple teams, how you will differentiate? By using namespaces. Okay, by using namespace only, we will be. Let's say I created this dev team. So this dev team is going to deploy 100 pods. No, I don't want dev team to be deployed 100 pods, because if they're continuously doing that, they are consuming my more CPU memory from the cluster. So I don't want them to consume entire resources, whatever all present in the cluster. I wanted to restrict them. I wanted to restrict them. So in that case, I can write a resource quota for this namespace, so that they can only use 2 pods. Let's say they can only use they can only run 2 pods, 500 memory and 1 GB, means 500 CPU and 1 GB memory, like that. So I can limit them like this. So this is the main use case inside your cluster. Wherever you go at any company, Without a namespace, none of the cluster is not configured at any of the company. So this is mandatory, must, you will see, and your job is also this one only.
Okay. Okay. So basically, they all tied to the system configuration. So dev team first, like when we start that project, so we have to decide for this development team. So I have to give only 10 systems, right? Based on that, you will configure it in resource, and then you assign those resource to the namespace.
Yes. So
Okay.
that they can only be within the limit. Within the
Okay.
limit, they can configure and they can perform the testing, whatever they wanted to do. So that their team is that only. Even there is a concept called context. I'll tell you that context. What does this context will do? Let's say you are a user. Okay, basically you are a user. Uh, you are a user. If you are a user, and here, sorry, if you are a user and you are logging uh, into this cluster, into this cluster. So via some terminal, okay, you have some terminal. So with the terminal, you are logging into this with the kubeconfig command authorization. I'll tell you that I have not covered that one. I'll tell you these are very, very important. And while we are running the kubectl commands, before that we have to authenticate to the cluster, to this cluster. Okay. So when you are authenticating to the cluster, there is a called context kubectl hyphen set kubectl hyphen set config something like this and set hyphen context. I forgot the command. Set hyphen context name. Let's say you are saying that dev team. It's a namespace. Dev team is the namespace. When you run like this developer is particularly checking out to into this one only. Is checking out to into this area. He can only see whatever present inside this namespace. He cannot see other things. This app team pods he will not able to see. Other team pods he will not able to see. He only can see the information whatever present inside this namespace. When you do context. When you do context. So he can only means he is only restricted to be work under this logic space. So like that, you are controlling the different teams by using this namespaces. Let's say you have an app team will only context to this one. So you are a DevOps engineer or you are an ML engineer, ML ops engineer or AI ops engineer or AI platform engineer or a dev platform engineer, DevOps platform engineer. You will be having an access to the entire cluster. You can able to see all the namespaces, all the pods, but not development team, but not testing team, but not application team. They will have limited access. They only have access to specific namespace. They can only see here. They know that this namespace only exists like that. They don't know what's others running in the cluster. So So this is how. Even you have multiple clusters, let's say. This is a one cluster. Let's say you have another cluster also like this. So when you have two cluster and you are an engineer, you wanted to log into the two clusters. How you will log in? By using some context strategy. You have to context into the two clusters. I'll show you that practically. We will come to that point by discussing all the topics, then we'll come to that point while with the EKS cluster and all in the cloud level, okay? But now understand this, namespace is something you can isolate your teams and also manage the resources, organize them and isolate the resources in a better manner at the enterprise level. So that is what the use case of namespaces, okay? And there are different namespaces actually. There are different namespaces actually. So whenever you create the cluster, so there is a default namespace. Okay, default namespace, it's nothing but none. All resources, whatever you create, it will be comes under the default one. And then you have kube system. Kube system. So inside this kube system, what happens? All core components of the Kubernetes will be inside. And kube public. Kube public. Inside this kube public, you will have all public readable data of the cluster. And you will be having kube node, something like is called. Yeah. So what it will have, it will track all your nodes heartbeat or nodes servers, nothing but nodes, heartbeat and tracking. Everything will be possible through the node lease only. So you should not touch or you should not deploy any application in the kube system. It's fine that you're touching other things, but you should not do something in the kube system. There are few things only you have to deploy under the kube system. We will discuss that while you're going to the Prometheus, while you're going to the Istio or something like that. So there are other components will be added. When you're going to very deep, you'll get to know that why I have to choose kube system, because those are the core components to help the Kubernetes for the better performance or enhancing the performance. Those kind of systems you'll be deploying under the kube system. Other things you can be on the kube public and node list. So in the real time, any application that you are deploying, you will be not selecting any of this one. You have to create your own namespace. You have to create your own namespace. Under your own namespace, you have to deploy the pods, deployments, services, config maps, secrets, storage classes, persistence volumes. All these things you can deploy under the namespace. So basically what happens, there are some components. Let me list down you. Namespace, interview question, namespace are only applied to few resources in the cluster. To few resources in the cluster. What are they? Important. One is pods, and second one is deployments, and third one is services, and fourth one is config maps. I'll tell you config maps, we not came to that point. And fifth one is secrets. Secrets. Yeah. And namespace shortcut NS is not applicable to first one, which is nodes, not to the servers. You cannot deploy any node under, or you cannot call any node under a namespace. Okay. In that time, just please recall this diagram. In that case, just please recall this diagram. Namespace is a logical boundary that we are building logically over the servers only. So server will not come under this namespace. Namespace you are building top of the servers in the cluster level. So it will not come under this. So keep it in mind. Okay. And yeah. So what else? And second thing is namespace is not applicable to the nodes. Namespace is not applicable to the PV and PVCs, persistence volumes, and namespace is not applicable to your storage classes. And namespace is not applicable for your itself namespaces. There is an interview question. So if they know this thing, they feel that okay, they are the king in the DevOps, and they are asking you that they know uh, they are the king in the DevOps kind of thing. So will you apply the namespaces to the namespaces like that? So simple thing, no, namespace cannot be applied themselves for the namespaces. And one more thing, you need to remember, all these namespaces, note, important, all are these things. It's only cluster scoped only, not out of the cluster. Cluster scope resources, which are all the resources are present inside your cluster. It is only possible to apply the namespaces to it. Okay. It is only applied to that only. So this is the concept of the namespaces and very, very important. If we go to the killer coda, so you can run kubectl get namespace or ns. It is a shortcut. Forget about this one because of the killer coda platform. It is showing that what are all the default namespaces there? Default, kube node lease, kube public, and kube system. Right? So these are all the namespaces are present here. You can create namespace in the two ways. One is imperative way and one is declarative way. Imperative way means with a command line. Declarative way means with a YAML. So whenever you are typing, let's say you are typing ns.yml. So write down API. My meeting is going to end, guys, in 10 minutes. No problem. Shit. Okay, I'll forward this one. Google Meet, then follow that. API version, let me write v1, then you can write kind namespace, and then you can write metadata, right? Name is equal to give dev-team, okay? Escape shift colon wq explanatory mark. kubectl apply -f ns.yml. Line number 2, I did a mistake. So here we need to give space. Escape shift colon wq explanatory mark. Now apply. So it is created. kubectl get ns. When you type here, you can able to see dev team. Now you can deploy a pod under this namespace. So when you go into the pod.yml, just clearly go to the Kubernetes, create as pod YML, just simply copy from there, Don't struggle to write much. Just copy it and come here, paste here. So while you're going under the metadata, after this metadata, name, enter, and say that namespace. So before you are mentioning here, that should be present, already created. Okay, that should already created in your cluster. Escape shift colon W colon exclamatory mark. Now kubectl apply -f pod.yml. So pod is created. Kubectl get pods. Am I getting any pod? Am I getting any pod?
No,
Why I'm not getting any pod?
it's inside no namespace. You have to mention namespace.
So now this is a default namespace, right? If you not mention any namespace, that will comes under falls under the default one. So now it is, if you say -n dev-team, I can see the pod under this namespace, right? I can see pod under this namespace. So this is how you're segregating now. Now you are a user who is having access to this one, and everyone can see that. Now I can segregate, right? I'm able to do segregate. If you are putting this namespace under the deployment is having replica 3, then all 3 pods under this namespace. All 3 pods are under this namespace. So this is how. Let's say I will create one more pod under the default namespace. Let's say kubectl run -image pod name my-web is equal to nginx. Kubectl get pods. I'm able to see this pod, right? It's creating container, create, some error is there. Okay, whatever, fine. Crash loop back issue happen because I given maybe a wrong, yeah. Okay, but I'm able to see without a namespace, If I wanted to context, into the specific namespace, I should not see the default pod. I have to only see the dev team pods. How you can set up kubectl config set hyphen context, and then you can say current hyphen namespace, I guess namespace is equal to dev-team. Dev-team error bad flag namespace dev-.
Two only icons. You've given 3 names.
Now I have context into this one only. If you ask kubectl get pods, I'm able to see nginx, right? Previously which pod it is? Pod. Pod name is pod. But here nginx. Without providing -n, I can able to see. That means I have context into this, right? I have entered into this logical. Things from here directly. So this is how you're contexting into the namespaces and you're deploying the pods into it. Are you getting all?
Yes, sir.
Everyone, please tell me.
Rajani, like, so the dev underscore team, right? How do we know that, like, no, this is the namespace that team has created it, right? Do Are they maintaining any databases or any document, or
No,
how do we?
see, if you wanted, if your pod is, some team is coming to you and they're saying that
Right.
one of the pod is failed, they not mention any information to you. So
Right.
when you go to the cluster, you will be able to see bunch of namespaces.
Correct.
So you don't know which namespace it is. Like 100 namespaces, 50 namespaces in the cluster.
Correct.
It
Correct.
is your job to ask them and get to know. Otherwise, you don't know which namespace they have created and which namespace is related to them.
Correct.
Otherwise, you
Okay.
need to find a pod by using a grep. When you use a grep
Mm.
of all namespaces, so you will find a pod under particular namespace. Then you have to confirm, is this the pod or is this the namespace that your team is to your respective team? This is a namespace or not? You must ask them. Otherwise, you are doing a wrong troubleshooting on the wrong area. That will impact too
Mm.
much. So you should ask and
Mm.
confirm all the time.
Okay. So the developer should know where their application is going to deploy, right? With all
No, no,
this
no. Basically,
information.
what happens most of the times, DevOps engineers will be having an idea which team is having which namespace. So in some of the
Mm.
companies, like take it as a example, JP, T-Mobile,
Mm.
or Dutch, or DBS, or big companies. When you see in the cluster, you'll see 100 namespaces, 200, 300 namespaces you can able to see. So in that, your mind will blown. You don't know which is one and which to be. So in that kind of companies, in that big platform, you must ask to your team member, to a person, or to an application owner, or to a somebody, so that you will get to know.
Okay. Okay. So are there any reporting tool or any front-end tool that attach to this complete this Kubernetes,
Yeah,
let's say instead of writing?
yeah. There are some tools like if you use Flux CD, okay, so it is very simple that in the CLI mode, Argo CD will be very simple to understand, or there will be Backstage, that's the developer platform tool, Backstage. So with these tools, quite easy of Kubernetes deployments.
Okay. So
And
basically they are integrated with this data to your backend, for example, InfluxDB, and then uh, all the data gets
not
stored into the
InfluxDB,
DB.
Flux CD,
Uh,
Flux CD, not
okay,
InfluxDB. That
FluxCD.
is two different terminologies.
Okay.
Yeah.
On top of that, you will have reporting, so that you don't
No
need to run
reporting. You
a.
can able to
Hmm.
identify it is easy. It's not like a kind of reporting. Reporting can be done from your Grafana. You can able to find out them.